What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Forward Progress. It's week 9, Best Bets edition, live here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network, and presented by Fanduel. I am Rob Pizzola, joined as always by Suma in the upper right-hand corner, Judah, bottom right-hand corner, and Hitman, bottom left. And today we are breaking down 11 different NFL games to help you hopefully cash in on this week's slate. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to hit that like button, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. I see clean-shaven Judah to go along with clean-shaven Rob. New look. I got to do something, guys, to turn the luck around on this show because, it's not been great for me this year. Quick review of last week, 2-2 with best bets again. Suma's at the bottom. He doesn't even get his name capitalized anymore on the board anymore with his record so far this year. I don't know that I had a strong opinion on karma coming into this season, but after I made fun of Hitman's best bets all of last year, he's completely turned it around, and I can't stop losing in painful fashion. Hitman wins yet again last week. He took the Raiders plus 9.5. Judah, easy winner on Ravens Browns over last week as well. I lost the Giants 6.5 on Monday Night Football. And Suma, poor Suma, Bears. Deprived us of a winning week on a Hail Mary. Hitman on top. Oh, man, what a year it's been so far. As we go through each game today, the 11 games we're going to go through, let's get some audience interaction during the live show. If you like the visiting team in the game, drop a 1. If you like the home team in the game, drop a 2 as we break it down. And we're going to start here with the Browns and the Chargers as our first game today. Taking a look at the board right now, Chargers, all the early money, I would say, is on the Browns in this game. Obviously, the look ahead was on the north side of 3. Not that I put much stock into that. FanDuel right now up to 1.5. We got some books at 1, some 2s out there, but one-way stream of Browns money. Total has also been bet up. We're at 43 across the board. FanDuel 42.5, minus 105 on the over is by far the best price in the market. If you did want to hit the over in this game, FanDuel would be your spot to do so. Suma, you can open it up this week for us. Chargers, Browns, you have some thoughts on the side here.
Yeah, a great win for the Browns last week. Was a little bit lucky in the end, but I think they kind of deserved it. But I think this week it's going to be a different matchup for them. The Chargers have a very, very decent / good defense. They make it extremely tough on opposing offenses. Granted, they played a very easy schedule so far, so that's always something to take a grain of salt. But I think that overall their scheme, their run defense, everything looks way improved this season. Jesse Minter, I think, has been a very decent DC, and I think that James Winston might not have such an easy time this week because the Ravens defense, especially their pass defense, is extremely wonky over the past couple of weeks. They were down 2 corners last week, and I think that their pass defense is really, really bad at this point. And this week, I think Winston and the Browns offense will have a different game. Not sure that all those wide receivers will look as good against that Chargers defense. Joey Bosa might see increased snaps going forward. So I just think that for as much as I like this offense more with James Winston on the center, I think going to last week, he was maybe a little bit underrated. This week, he might be a little bit overrated. Maybe the Chargers defense might catch 1 or 2 of those interceptable passes more than the Ravens did last week. There were some egregious drops on the defensive side for the Ravens. And on the other side, the Browns defense is not what they used to be. We talked about it, I think, several times on this channel already. The Chargers going into their bye week, they were one of the most run-heavy offenses in the league. Then all of a sudden, a switch happened. Since their bye week over the last 3 weeks, I have them ranked 4th in neutral state pass rate. Justin Herbert is on an absolute heater without those receiver drops, which is part of the Chargers offense for sure. He would also look much better in the box score department, but Justin Herbert is on an absolute heater. The offensive line's finally more healthy over the last few weeks. Browns defense, Denzel Ward has his 6th concussion. They called him day to day today, but I'm not really sure whether he will make it off a 6th concussion. Browns defense a little bit injured. JOK got knocked out of his life by Derrick Henry last week. I think Chargers overall, I have them as the better team. Also as the better team when we are looking at the current market prices. I think the Chargers offense, at least their pass offense, will make the difference. And I'm not sure we will see or we will get the same offensive performance by the Browns this week. So going with the Chargers, also liking them at the current Fanduel number of 1.5.
So Suma starting us off with the Chargers here. Saw a few people in the chat. Justin Tingwald liked the over in this game. Sammy M liked the over in this game. So did producer Jason, though, which could be a problem. Hitman, I know you had some thoughts on the total here. Knowing now that producer Jason is on the over, are you still willing to go to bat on it?
You know what? We're on such a hot run with the forward progress bets, especially the Saturday shows. Done good also. I don't even think Jason can mush this one. I like the over also. I thought that Suma, even though he was making points on the Chargers, I thought that he made some good points towards the over, as also the Browns defense. They have injuries to JOK and Denzel Ward right now. The Chargers are dealing with some secondary injuries as well, specifically to Christian Fulton with a hamstring injury right now. Suma spoke about the shift in the Chargers offense with the pass rate over expectation skyrocketing post a bye. That came with Justin Herbert having that bye week also to presumably get his ankle a bit healthier. And yes, a lot of the success that the Chargers had in those 2 games post-bye were against some bad defenses, but it's not like that it was against pass funnel defenses. Like the Saints and the Cardinals profiled as teams like, the Chargers are going to be able to run the ball down this team's throat as well, and they still came out with a pretty high pass rate over expectation. Herbert throwing for nearly 9 yards per attempt in both games. So I think there has been a little bit of a shift with the Chargers where they're at least not going to be a team that's like 32nd in pass rate over expectation. Maybe they end up being 20th, something in that ballpark, but it still is a recipe for more points, in my opinion, if they are throwing more with their star quarterback Justin Herbert. And then the Browns on the offensive side of the ball, the offensive line is presumably going to be the healthiest that it's been all year. Chargers defense has been playing really good this year, metrics wise, but it has been against a pretty weak opposing schedule of opposing offenses. And we know that the Browns wanted to come into the year. They profiled as a team that we thought was going to be pretty high in pass rate over expectation. And if they're going to execute that with now a competent quarterback, Jameis Winston is pretty much an overs dream at quarterback because he's going to have a lot of big plays. And as Suma mentioned, some of these interceptions that were dropped or whatever, a lot of times, yes, it could hurt field position, but a lot of times those picks could end up in pick sixes, good field position for the Chargers as well. So long story short, I love having Winston as an over quarterback. I think that the Chargers are starting to profile a little bit more as an over team. So I will look towards the over in this game, especially at that FanDuel price.
All right, we're starting off with the Chargers and the over here. I subjectively agree with the over as well. Did, though, take a quick look at the Chargers this year. They have not played a game yet this season that has gone into the 40s. I do think that's going to turn at some point, though, with the pass heaviness of that offense going forwards. Possibility of Quentin Johnson back as well, which I actually think matters for them as well. Our next game on the board had some recent news here. It's Carolina and New Orleans. Andy Dalton practiced, but then the team came out and said that Bryce Young will be the starter this week, and the market has since steamed. New Orleans now out to 7.5 across the board. Totals 43.5 in this game. And I'm just going to share some thoughts. I'm lucky that we actually did get the Young announcement before we actually came to air here today. But I hate coming on here and stating the obvious of taking a 7.5 point team and dropping them down below 7 and below 3. But there are some weeks where I think that there are some really, really good teaser options. I think the Chiefs are one on Monday Night Football right now. Teased down from 8 down to 2. I think the Saints and teasers this week is going to be a really solid option. I would wait to make sure that Derek Carr is going to be back. And yes, there's a performance downgrade on quarterbacks, especially coming back from oblique injuries. It's harder to throw downfield. But the Carolina Panthers are not a real football team right now. Like, they just aren't. They had a scripted drive that went for a touchdown against Denver. They then had 6 first downs on their next 8 possessions in that game last week before scoring in garbage time. They don't have an offense. They don't have a defense. We saw this play out in week 1 where the Saints steamrolled them. It's not the same Saints team, but I do feel very confident in the Saints winning this game. So just wanted to share those thoughts. I think the Saints, even though people don't like to play the road teams in the Wong teasers, I do think that Saints, Chiefs, and potentially Saints, Eagles, things of that nature this week are pretty solid. So that's the look there for New Orleans, Carolina. I hate to state the obvious, but some people don't play the teasers, and I think that's a really good look. Moving along here, we got the Bills hosting the Miami Dolphins this week. Miami got Tua back last week. Didn't seem to matter. They blew a double-digit lead in the second half, lost outright at home to the Arizona Cardinals. They're going on the road to Buffalo. Now, Fanduel has this at 5.5 minus 120. Most of the other books in market have this as a 6 right now. Total got bet up early into the 50s, has since kind of found a level here at 49.5. We're going to go to you here first, Judah. You had some thoughts on the side in this game.
Yeah, a little bit less so given the market's movement, but I still like it a bit, and that's Miami at 5.5 now at minus 102. I think that 6 is a lot of points considering the state of the Miami offense. I think that Tua Tagovailoa kind of removed any questions of the health and how the Dolphins are going to operate their offense. He was operating it exactly as it's been over the last 2-3 years with Mike McDaniel. He got rid of the ball in 2.3 seconds, which aggregated over the course of the season is the quickest time to throw in the NFL. And because they have wide receivers in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and how creative they are with motion, they can create quick separation. And I think this is a spot that also plays well into the matchup they have. Buffalo does a very, very good job defending the boundaries where they have the 4th best EPA per play allowed, but they're very vulnerable over the middle of the field where they've allowed I think it's 16th best EPA per play. And a lot of that also has to do with some turnovers they've generated over the middle of the field. And the Dolphins over the course of the last 3 years are at the very, very top of the NFL in production over the middle of the field. I think this sets up well for them. And when you look at how good this offense has been over the last 3 years, and even what the offense was not the problem last week. They had a 0.2 EPA per pass. They were running the ball effectively. I think this is a matchup that plays into their favor, and the points are just too much given how good I think the Dolphins offense is right now.
I like the total in this game, and money's been on the over, bought back a little bit to 49.5. I certainly have some concerns about the Dolphins defense with Zach Sealer potentially missing the game again. He's a very impactful player for them on the D-line. The Dolphins don't generate a ton of sacks, but they actually have a really high pressure percentage when he's in there, and they generate a ton of pressure on the interior. I still like the under if he doesn't play, although I would adjust my unit size pretty significantly. But most of this has to do with the style of play that the Bills play offense in right now, which is a complete night and day shift from what it was last year. They run the ball pretty heavily. They throw underneath a lot. They don't really attack downfield all that much. And there's a reason why these Bills games are consistently ending in the mid-40s. It's because their offense moves pretty methodically, and their defense has actually been playing really well since getting back to full health. Teron Johnson back in there a few weeks ago really is an excellent corner group that can match up with these Miami Dolphins wide receivers. Von Miller coming back from suspension. This is a team that can regularly rush for and generate pressure and drop players into coverage. We saw this in the game earlier this year where Tua ended up getting hurt earlier this season. But I think this number is a little bit too high for what the Bills are this season. And I know you might compare to previous totals. Bills, Miami have always had high totals, but it's just a different iteration of the Buffalo Bills this year. So I think 49.5 is a little bit too high in this game. I do like the under in this one. We'll shift gears over to the NFC. It's the Atlanta Falcons coming off a victory against the Bucs, hosting the reeling Dallas Cowboys, who lose yet again on Sunday Night Football in this one. Market in the game at Fanduel, Atlanta -2.5, -115. That's pretty consistent with all the other numbers in market. Pretty high total here in above 51 at 51.5 in this game. Suma, I'll throw it over to you here to start. You were looking at one of the sides.
Yes, looking at Atlanta, I think on the surface, this is probably a matchup on paper, which plays into the total, where the Cowboys should have more success offensively. The Atlanta pass rush is not great. However, the Cowboys have struggled offensively against everyone this season. They can't run the ball. They require Dak to basically have a perfect game, throw into tight windows. And even I just don't think that they will suddenly, even if it's Atlanta, be able to run the ball successfully with those running backs. So it will be another game where Dak also has to be very good, throwing into tight coverage against the likes of Justin Simmons, likely going to be back, Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell, and that will basically be their MO to score a bunch of points. But my biggest issue is on the other side of the ball. The Cowboys have one of the worst defenses in football. I think there's no arguing about it. The three Cowboys wins this season were against Cleveland, where the opponent scored 17 points, Deshaun Watson. Giants, 15 points, Daniel Jones. Pittsburgh, 17 points, Justin Fields. In all other games, they basically got smoked. Micah Parsons is not ready to practice yet. That was the tweet I've read, I think, 1 hour ago. And Atlanta's offense is improving. This was a quarterback coming off Achilles injury, new scheme. Kyle Pitts was had a lingering injury all of last season. I think we all expected this offense might need some time to gel. I think they are getting better. Granted, they have been playing against bad defenses over the past few weeks, but they will get another bad defense. So Cowboys have one of the worst run defenses in football right now. I think the Falcons will do whatever they want in the running game. They will use all their play action concepts off of it, because I don't see how the Cowboys defense can do anything about it. And then if the Falcons can score a lot of points on this defense, I'm always getting to the same point of I don't trust that Cowboys offense as much. I don't think that if they are one-dimensional, they can really hang on and score 30 points. And that way, I'm really struggling to get to the number of a field goal here. So I like the Falcons. I think Fanduel is minus 2.5 right now at minus 115. Yes.
2.5, 115. Judah, pick up here. I know you're liking the same side.
Yeah, I like the Falcons a lot. I also really like their alts here as well. I think when you kind of look at it from a fundamentals perspective, in terms of like choose any really efficiency stat that you want to look at, these teams are in completely different tiers. This offense is far better. And I think when you break it down further on the matchup side of things, it paints an even clearer picture in favor of Atlanta. Kirk Cousins is one of the more drastic quarterbacks in terms of the situation around him. He performs significantly better in spots where he kind of has a situational advantage against teams that don't generate a lot of pressure, are not great at generating perfect coverage. He can really execute on a scheme very well, but struggles to create on his own when the play breaks down. And Dallas has been abysmal. They are tied with Carolina in what I have as disruption rate, which are perfect coverage or plays that do not allow a quarterback to go through his progressions, but you can kind of choose any stat you want to. And against non-Deshaun Watson offenses, the team's allowing like 10 yards per attempt. They're the worst rushing defense in football. There's virtually nothing that they've been able to do on the defensive side of things that will kind of allow them to stop Atlanta. And I think that Atlanta, and especially Kirk Cousins, is poised to take advantage of the matchup here in specific. And then on the other side of the ball, I would just echo a lot of what Suma said in that the Falcons, I think, are going to struggle against teams that can really take advantage of their lack of a pass rush. But when CeeDee Lamb is not going for 175 yards, Dallas virtually has had zero offense. Jalen Tolbert is seeing among the highest rates of single coverage. He can't separate right now. He's not generating any production at all. And it's just forcing a ton of these tight window throws Dak Prescott is like 6% higher in his tight window percentage than the next closest quarterback, and the base rate of success there is so much worse, and your rate of an interception is 10 times higher on tight window throws than non-tight window throws. It's just difficult to sustain any level of success on offense that way. And I would just agree with Suma here that having no rushing attack also is not helping Dallas, and I don't see why that would change this week. I think when you just look at where the teams are right now from a fundamentals point of view, and then you account for the matchup as well, I think these are two teams in completely different tiers. And inside 3 here is just far too short. And I think that Atlanta can certainly win with margin. And I'd be comfortable laying the alts here.
Yeah, just to add to that, Judah, obviously I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm pretty in tune with the team, but I was looking through the True Media package this morning, and Dak Prescott has attempted 59 tight window throws so far this season. His career high going into this year was 47 in 2018. We're not even halfway through the season yet. And what Atlanta does really well, they may not generate a pass rush. And this was part of the handicap last week against Tampa Bay, but they actually cover really well. They have good cover corners. I think it's just going to be another one of those situations where Dak is throwing into tight windows all day. Maybe he has time, but that doesn't mean that his receivers are going to get open, because it hasn't happened all year. So strong lean to me towards Atlanta as well. Jaded Cowboys fan here for sure. Just like continuously making cases against them every single week. We got 7 more games that we are going to cover today. But before we do, football is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the NFL action than Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. You place any $5 bet, you get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. You can use your bets on spreads, props, live bets, including the To Catch a Pass market, which we use on our live watch-alongs here on Forward Progress, over-unders, and so much more. We love betting on FanDuel. It's honestly a great sports book with the offerings that they have, how great the product is, how easy it is to use and find different types of bets. So visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress. Download America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com/forwardprogress. You must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. Terms are at sportsbook.fanduel.com. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG, 888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY if you are in New York. Keep it moving along here. Go in rotation number order here. So you might be surprised that we're covering Sunday Night Football. It's the Colts and the Vikings, which got flexed into that situation. Big news yesterday. Anthony Richardson benched in favor of Joe Flacco in this game. And when we look at the market, a little bit of a reaction to Indianapolis. We're now pretty much settled at 5.5 across the entire market. Total in the game, 46.5, juiced towards the over at FanDuel. Hitman, over to you here. Break it down for us. Colts and Vikings, who are you liking here?
Colts, but the buy point on it for me would be 6. So maybe we get to 6. Maybe we don't. But if it gets to 6, I think it's worth a play. Indy just closed 5 at Houston, a team where when Stephon Diggs was healthy, I had rated pretty similar to Minnesota, and the Colts just received a quarterback upgrade, obviously. I'm pretty high on the Colts just based off the fact that I think that they've been destroyed with injuries early in the year, and they're undervalued because of it now that they're finally getting relatively healthy. It's a team that came into the season with a market rating of being pretty much an average team. And I think that they probably would have been playing like that year-to-date metrics if it just wasn't for the injuries that derailed their season in the early going. The defense specifically is a lot healthier. They pressured CJ Stroud on 57% of his dropbacks last week, which was the 4th highest pressure rate that a quarterback faced all year. This is the Vikings' first game without their all-world left tackle, Christian Darrisaw. And one thing about Sam Darnold is, even though he has exceeded expectations this year, he still has been susceptible to pressure this year, as he has been throughout his entire career. And I think, it's pretty much a unanimous opinion that Flacco is an upgrade over Richardson. But just the fact that, especially for this matchup, to have a veteran quarterback who theoretically has seen almost every blitz throughout his entire career, should be able to identify and attack the Vikings blitz. This defense has had some leaks in the past 2 weeks going against fellow veteran quarterbacks that could identify the blitz, and Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. They ranked 32nd in pass defense EPA over those 2 weeks. I still think that this is an above average defense, but it's probably not the all world best defense in the league that they were playing like early in the season. So yeah, I think that the Colts are still just a little bit undervalued based off the early season injuries. And I would be looking towards them in this game, especially if we get just another half point.
Yeah, certainly possible. I think there's been some back and forth on this game so far. And then obviously the trade for another left tackle yesterday for Minnesota as well from Jacksonville could potentially get back out there if there's a strong opinion in market. I'll keep it moving along here. A lot of people have been impressed with the Denver Broncos lately. They have a big test going out on the road at the Baltimore Ravens. Market is painted 9.5 in this game. Total has been bet up to 45.5. Lamar Jackson did not practice today. It's Wednesday. Oftentimes the Wednesday injury reports are not all that impactful. And Lamar Jackson actually has a history of surprise illnesses and stuff, which leads him to not practice on Wednesdays. Suma, I know you had thoughts on the total here. It's been one-way action towards the over. Are you agreeing with that or not?
Yes, I am agreeing with that. Broncos defense has been really, really good so far, unexpectedly going to the season. But Ravens offense is still a completely different animal. I don't think that the Broncos defense will be able to slow down their run game. Ravens just traded for Deontay Johnson, who is not going to be their wide receiver 1 or 2. So I would expect him to play, but I'm not thinking it will change a lot in this game. Would be a sweet bonus. But this Ravens offense, despite losing last week, we know that they probably could have won easily. They are on a completely different level in terms of DVOA. Some people have some reservations about DVOA, but I think they are 6th best through 8 weeks in the history of the DVOA database. So it's been a really, really good offense. I expect them to score here. And then on the other side, I feel a little bit dumb to say this after they played the Panthers, because those games should not count. But Bo Nix has been getting better and better. He's improving. I've heard on a podcast, I can't remember which one it was, but I've heard that Sean Payton had a too complex offense early in the year, and they scaled back a lot of that to not put so much on the shoulders of Bo Nix. I don't know whether it's this or just him improving, but this offense is looking better and better, even though there are still a lot of limitations with Bo Nix, I would say. And this Ravens pass defense is really, really bad at this point. We don't know whether their cornerback room is going to get healthier this week. Marlon Humphrey was a big-time loss. He was their best corner so far this year. But this is really a pass funnel defense. And the way the Denver Broncos offense has been playing, I just don't expect them to get shut down. I expect them to put together a few scoring drives. It might be in the garbage time, but overall, I think that this total at 45.5 is still a little bit too short.
Yeah, shameless plug here. I'm going to pull up Patrick's comment. Nice shout out on the over during the Sunday watch along when it was 43.5 at FanDuel. That was one of the looks that me and Clive had for this upcoming week. And honestly, I still don't think this total is high enough. I really don't. I didn't know how it was south of 44 at the opener. And this is the Ravens profile as such a heavy over team. Michael Pierce is now lost, put on IR for the next 4 weeks. So they lose their nose tackle, which is big for them on the defensive line. But I don't think people truly realize how good the Ravens offense is, as weird as that is to say. Cleveland did a good job of shutting down the designed runs from Lamar Jackson last week, and they had a lot of success doing that. But I believe this Denver Broncos defense, while still good, is largely overrated based off of the quality of competition that they faced. The Ravens have averaged 7.1 yards per play this season. Through 8 weeks of the season, that's the third highest number among 798 individual team seasons since 2000. That's how good the offense has been. I think they score at will, and I think the Denver offense is better than people give them credit for. So I'm with Suma on this one. I mean, I don't know where the market's going to go from here, but I still have it priced above this number. Switching gears back to the NFC. It's an NFC East matchup. Giants lose ugly on Monday Night Football. They now take on the Commanders, riding in high off of a Hail Mary victory over the Chicago Bears. Market's been at 3.5 since open, but threatened 4 for a little period today at some books. We're seeing 3.5 minus 112 at Fanduel right now. Money on the over at Fanduel for sure. This has been bet up through 44. You do have some other market-making books still sitting on 43.5 right now. So if you're looking for the under in this matchup, Fanduel would be definitely the spot that you would shop for that. Judah, though, I know you're not looking at the total specifically here. You're looking at the side. Who's it going to be and why?
Yeah, I like Washington here. I think that at this point, it's kind of old news. The Washington offense is good. If not the best offense in the league, they're probably right behind Baltimore. They've been terrific. I don't really need to stress that enough. But the defensive side of the ball is where I think a lot of the value kind of lies. And sure, the opponents have been pretty easy. They've actually over the last month or so been the best pass EPA team in the NFL. But even if we do that, relatively speaking, if we just break down some of their recent games, Chicago had their third worst EPA per play against Washington, and that's their lowest since week 2. And Caleb Williams has certainly improved as the season's gone along. Carolina with Dalton had their worst pass EPA game against them. Baltimore, where Washington lost 2 of their pass rushers mid-game, had their 4th best or worst. They played 8 games this season, and Cleveland had their second to worst pass EPA game, and Arizona the worst pass EPA game. So, relatively speaking, this is still a defense that has, I think, outperformed expectations even against bad teams. And when you kind of break down where it's coming from, their pressure rates have increased tremendously over the last month or so. And Dan Quinn, it's one thing for a defensive coordinator that's been around for a long time and a team to kind of just improve out of nowhere. It's another thing when you have a defensive coach who we should have a strong prior on as being a good defensive coordinator. I mean, just look at the Cowboys. Granted, they've certainly dealt with some injuries and lost some players, but just look at the defense this year as opposed to where it's been the past 3-4 years with Dan Quinn there. And I think this is a Washington defense that's improved. And Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler are legitimate players. They graded out extremely well, even last year with Dallas. They, again, are at the top of the league in pressure marks. They're not the biggest household names, but I think they are every bit as legitimate and dominant pass rushers, as crazy as that sounds. And I think this Washington defense is far better than the market's currently priced in. And there was certainly a strong prior of Washington coming into the season as being one of the worst in the NFL, and they certainly lived up to that over the first 3 weeks of the season. But that just has not been the case over the last month. And I'm much more comfortable to back that sample size, given what we know about Dan Quinn, given what we know about teams getting better as the season goes along in the first year of a defensive coordinator. I just think Washington is way underpriced, even on both sides of the ball right now.
Suma, you were in agreement with Judah on the Atlanta Falcons. Are you making it 2 for 2 here, or do you want to make a case for the other side?
Yes, 2 for 2. The Giants defense, their only strength is their defensive line, which has been really, really good at times. But I think that gets negated by A, the scheme of Cliff Kingsbury, and B, Jane Daniels being able to take off and evade any linebacker safety that you could put out there. So then it leaves us with a super bad Giants run defense and a super bad Giants secondary. Deontay Banks got subtly benched last week, so they really have some issues at cornerback right now. I think the Commanders have the ingredients to score at will here, and then Judah laid it out perfectly. I think that I especially underrated the Commanders defense at the beginning of the season, but they've been getting better, and I just don't see the Giants offense doing much to keep pace with the Commanders here. So fully agree with Judah.
Yeah, I'm going to take a different angle here. I'm not as high on the Commanders defense as you guys are. I mean, I could very well be wrong, but I do still think that secondary at some point is going to let them down. I want to look at Washington's team total over in this game. So I kind of want a piece of Washington, but I just want to trust them to score points. Full disclosure, the number at Fanduel is playable, but I would encourage anyone, shop for the best number wherever you can. There's some stuff that's still sub 23.5 or 24 in this game, which, is definitely the way that I would look. I just like to attack the Commanders in games following some bad red zone efficiency, because I do think that they're going to move the ball up and down the field regardless of the opponent. Last week, we saw them put up over 480 yards, 6.7 yards per play against a good Bears defense with certainly some injuries, but a good defense. If you remove the Hail Mary, it's still well over 400 yards. It's still over 6 yards per play, and they just bogged down in the red zone. They've done that this year. They did that earlier this year against the Giants, where they actually had 7 possessions, all of which ended in a field goal in the game as well. But I'm looking at Washington's team total over in this game. I think that's the best way to play it. I'll just trust Jaden Daniels continuing to be elite and moving the ball. And one thing about the Giants, yes, they generate pressure. Daniels is very good at escaping pressure, also gets the ball out of his hand pretty quickly as well. We'll continue on here in a second. If you're watching or listening, if you find value in this show, help us spread the word by sharing the show out on your socials, whether it's one of our handicaps that you like, a surprising stat, your favorite clip, whatever it may be. Sharing helps us reach more fans just like you. Plus, we'd love to hear from you in the comments as well, or in the tags. So just keep the conversation going as much as possible. But let's make the community get bigger and better every week. I'll respond to anyone in the chat that posts a comment after this episode as well, whether it's your favorite play, just a general football question. I do respond in the comments every single week. Appreciate the support from everyone out there. Okay, keeping it going. It's the Rams and the Seahawks. Pretty much entirely one-way action on this game, with the Rams now being bet out to 1.5-point favorites at FanDuel. Total in the game, 48.5. Obviously, the Rams looked very good on Thursday Night Football, and the offense back together. People seem to be interested in laying this price with the LA Rams right now. Suma, over to you here first. You agree with this movement, or are you looking back to buy back on the Seahawks here potentially?
No, I agree with that move. Just while we were recording, there was some influx of Seahawks money off the news that DK Metcalf is not practicing, but they're still optimistic of him playing on Sunday. I think that was pretty much the theme last week, that he would have a decent shot of playing this week. However, I still like the Rams at -1.5. Over the course of the season, when you compare these two teams data-wise, I think there's a decent case to make that they are very close together in terms of performance. And that was with the Rams not having Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Since the start of 2023, I might bore you because these stats are floating around on X, but with those three guys on the field, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Kyron Williams, the Rams offense is averaging 0.211 EPA per play and a success rate of 50%. That would lead the entire league usually over the full course of an NFL season. So this is pretty good. And the Seahawks defense, I just don't think Mike McDonald has all the PS to call the defense that he used to call at Baltimore. This defense is not great, especially the way where they get gashed on the ground. We saw it last week against Buffalo. And the Rams can play the exact style of offense where they have someone motioning across the formation, and then they climb with all those double teams. And that's the way the Buffalo Bills attack them. And that's the way that this Rams offense is perfectly suited for. There's also a small chance that the Rams might get some guard help back with Steve Avila and Jonah Jackson, not banking on them to play. I think it's less than 50%, but there's some injury upside for the Rams here. And I just think we are getting the better overall defense. And defensively, it might be a wash, but the Rams can do everything. They should be able to run the ball on the Seahawks. They should be able to throw the ball on the Seahawks. And I'm not sure that the Seahawks offense can be all of a sudden two-dimensional. They need to have some flow on offense with their run game. They are not getting into it so far this season, which leaves Geno Smith in a lot of obvious passing situation with pressure, with a below average offensive line. And I don't think that's a recipe for success against a fully healthy or almost fully healthy Rams offense.
I see Suma said recipe there, and he really highlighted that he said recipe because he previously used to say recipe, and I called him out on it back in like week 2. Well done, Suma. English is coming along well. We stopped doing futures on the show every single week because we wanted to get more games in every single week. We had just an appetite to give more opinions. But Hitman, in this specific game's Rams-Seattle, you had some future thoughts here.
Go listen to Rob. I gave out the Cowboys under. It's looking great. And then he got rid of the segment. So he got hurt about it. But yeah, I like that. I bet this. I bet the Rams over 7.5 wins. I believe it's minus 128 right now at Fanduel, which is good with me. The Rams are back their offensive weapons, obviously. They've taken a ton of sharp money the last 2 weeks against Minnesota, closing 2.5-point home dogs in that game. Now, Seattle, they're getting to a point right now that they're laying 1.5 points in Seattle when Buffalo just laid 3 points in Seattle. And DK Metcalf was out for that Buffalo game, probably going to end up playing in this Rams game. So I just think it's a team that I'm high on. It seems like the market is really high on. Their offensive metrics going back to last season, as Suma said, when they have Nakua Williams and Kupp on the field, have been elite. I think that the most important part about the little 2-game win streak that they have with the Raiders, and especially with the Vikings win, is that this team is no longer likely to be sellers at the trade deadline. And it's a team that, I have them rated as a slightly above average team. I know there's more elements to this where what their schedule is and everything, but we're asking what's a slightly above average team right now to finish the season 5-5. So I could bore you with I plugged in the numbers with the spread, got a win probability, all that. I'm not going to do that. I just think that's a Rams team that's a little bit undervalued, not in the game-to-game market right now. Like in this week, in my opinion, I don't think that they're undervalued, but sometimes these season long and these derivatives and props take a little while to catch up because it's a less efficient market. So that was the way that I attacked the Rams, was the over 7.5 wins.
All right. I like that look. And apparently so do the people in the chat as well. So that's the way that Hitman's going to go on it. LA Rams over. 3 more games to get to, and then we're going to get to our best bets. We will go to the NFC North. It's the Packers and it's the Lions. A lot of moving parts here. A lot of players missed practice for the Lions today. I don't think it's too concerning. Jared Goff's dealing with an ankle injury. It's something to monitor. The big factor here is going to be who's going to be the quarterback for Green Bay. What's the line going to be depending on that situation? Right now at FanDuel, Green Bay's getting 3.5, minus 120 in the game. Total's 47.5, juiced over. If you do like the under in this game, FanDuel's probably the spot to bet it. 47.5, minus 104, better than a lot of the 48s that are out there right now. Judah, let's start with you here. Handicap this one for us. What are you doing with it?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot of injury uncertainty, and that certainly is very relevant in handicapping this. But I also think that the Lions are perhaps a bit overvalued in this spot. The Packers have been one of the best defenses in the NFL over the last 5-6 weeks. Again, you want to talk about it's one thing to kind of have any sample. It's another thing when you have a new coordinator, and we should expect those teams to get better. I would hope that Jair Alexander plays in this one. He's questionable at the moment with a knee injury, unless there was some news that I missed that he's out. And I think on the Lions side on defense, it hasn't really come up yet, but there were a lot of questions surrounding how well this defense would play without Aiden Hutchinson. And the defense has been really bad over the last 2 weeks. They allowed an 11% explosive pass rate the past couple of weeks. Their pressure rate is down about like 10%. Their yards per attempt allowed were 6.7 and 6.8 the last 2 weeks, both the worst marks of the season. This is not a great defense right now. And I think when you turn to the Packers side, if it's Jordan Love, I think this is an offense that can exploit Detroit via the explosive plays. And even if it's Malik Willis, I think that what he presents is such an elevated rushing floor. And yes, the Lions have one of the best run defenses in football. But I think when you have a quarterback like Malik Willis, who his gravity is so large in the run game because of his rushing threat, I think that gives enough of a floor for Green Bay to continue kind of marching down the field. And also he still has been able to generate explosive plays. And he's really, really prone to sacks. But if Detroit can't generate much of a pass rush, I think that matters a little bit less. No matter how you slice it, I think this Detroit defense is very much overvalued in market. The Green Bay defense also has improved over the last month or so. And I'm comfortable backing the Packers.
Sam in the chat says they just asked Love if it's realistic he plays on Sunday. He said, I think it's realistic. So we're not going to know anything new today, I don't think, but trending towards, I think, greater than 50% that Love will play. I mean, that's just my opinion, but trending that way. Hitman, you got some thoughts here as well.
Yeah. Obviously the spread is it's if you find out if Jordan Love's playing or not, that's going to determine in all likelihood who at current market, who you like. It's going to go up if Love is out. It's going to go down if Love is in. But I think that the total is the thing that I'm monitoring the most. If Jordan Love is out, the total is going to go down, but I just don't know if it's going to go down enough right away. I still might be looking to play the under, depending how low it ultimately does get. Off of that information, Green Bay plays extremely slow and run heavy with Willis at quarterback. I don't think that Green Bay is going to get away from that, despite the fact that the Lions defense is a pass funnel. We have Jared Goff. I mean, I think he's going to practice tomorrow is the latest reports, but it doesn't help that he is a little banged up right now. Detroit is 25th in situation neutral pass rate. Green Bay's defense has been a little bit more of a run funnel this year. The past 4 weeks, the Lions games are 31st in play volume. And the Lions are also lacking a pretty explosive element of their pass game right now without Jameson Williams. So for me, I'm just monitoring this total, and I think that it still could have some value to the under if at whatever the adjusted number ends up being, if Jordan Love does play. But I haven't heard anything on Jordan Love. Some reporters seem to be leaning towards that he's got a good shot this week, but these were some of the same guys whose reporting last week had Jaden Daniels like seemingly like 90% out, which obviously didn't materialize. So I'm not racing to bet off of some of their information. But yeah, that's all I got on that game.
Yeah. Jim says in the chat, QB situation is baked into the line.
No, it's not.
It's definitely not. I mean, this will close higher if it's Malik Willis. It will close lower if it's Jordan Love. That's basically what's going to happen in this game. My first thought was exactly what I can't pronounce his name ever. I struggle. Goff outdoors on grass. I think a lot of us were thinking that, right? Lions have played all these indoor games this year. This is like the true Jared Goff experience. But the more and more I thought about this, I mean, if Jordan Love goes, we see this happen all the time in the NFL. The market will react to that information, and they're going to, in my experience, most of the time price the game as if Jordan Love is like 100%. We see this happen when quarterbacks get ruled in a lot. Market moves out, and it's priced at 100%. And I know Goff has some terrible splits relative to being indoors when he's outdoors, especially if we get bad weather or anything along those lines. But the Lions should still be able to run the ball fairly successfully in this game. They have a very good O-line. They can run the ball. Gibbs is extremely dynamic. On the other side, you kind of got strength on strength because Green Bay's had a lot of explosive runs this year, second in the league to Baltimore, but the Lions have prevented explosive runs all year, only 15 allowed. I mean, depending on what this number gets to, if Love is ruled in and we get sub 3, I'm going to have a conversation with myself about betting Detroit because I think that would be a little bit of too much of a correction with a Jordan Love who he couldn't even stand last week with the groin injury that he had. So that's the way I'm looking at it for Green Bay and Detroit. Jacksonville taking on Philly. Some have dubbed it the Doug Peterson revenge game. It wasn't me that dubbed it that. I've just heard it around this week. Philly, one-way action. They're out to 7.5 right now. Total 45.5. Obviously, tons of injury stuff to process in this game for Jacksonville. Christian Kirk is out. Gabe Davis dealing with a banged-up shoulder. Brian Thomas Jr. likely will play, but there's a possibility he will miss. Offensive line injuries for the Jags. They've traded away their left tackle as well. So a lot going on here with the Jags offense. I'll throw it over to you, Judah, first. How are you looking at this handicap between Jacksonville and Philly?
Yeah, I think I would lean Jacksonville, and I'd prefer to attack kind of on the money line or on Jacksonville Colts. And I think you can kind of think of multiple frames for this game. One is we have the Bengals playing the Raiders in a similar 7.5 spot. It's one thing to bet on Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell to outperform Joe Burrow in an offense and put his team on his back and win that way. That is extremely, extremely unlikely to happen. Whereas it is certainly in the realm of possibilities for Trevor Lawrence to put the team on his back, virtually what he did last week in almost beating the Packers, where he himself was terrific. And there is a lot of mass on that possibility. I also think that the Jaguars on the defensive side of the ball, number one, they return Tyson Campbell, which is especially important. He's been, by my numbers, I think the fourth best in preventing separation. Jacksonville plays a ton of man coverage, and getting him back is going to be enormous in at least slowing down AJ Brown. I'm not sure anyone can really do that, but it is certainly an upgrade. And on the other side, I think that Philadelphia has had some extremely drastic splits depending on whether or not teams can generate early pressure. They looked like a complete disaster against the Browns. They looked on the passing side of the ball horrible against the Giants, both teams that have been able to generate pressure. And they were great against Cincinnati, who was really terrible. And Trayvon Walker has woken up over the last month of the season. It's not just the 5 sacks that he's generated, but his pressure numbers have skyrocketed. Jordan Mailata is a real problem at left tackle, or missing him, I should say, is a real problem at left tackle. It's a real weak link on this offense. There are paths, I think, to Trevor Lawrence having a great game, and even the Philadelphia offense slowing down. They've really relied so much on their explosive ground attack. Jacksonville's been one of the better run defenses in the NFL. And if they can generate pressure as they've done a little bit more so over the last month, then I think there are some paths to the defense slowing down Philadelphia and Jacksonville coming out ahead.
Interesting. Hitman, thoughts on the total for this one?
Yeah, I know we're up against it with the time, so I'll just be quick. In 3 games since the Eagles bye, they have the lowest situation neutral pass rate in the league. The Eagles average the 3rd most plays per drive and the 4th most average time used per drive. So this is a team that if they are going to score on this putrid Jaguars defense, it's likely going to take at least a little bit of time to do that. Since the bye, their games have had the league's fewest combined plays by far. The Jags offense, the injuries, we spoke about that. Christian Kirk could be down. Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis could be down. Both their starting guards. The Eagles defense since the bye, yes, it's been against 2 bad offenses and 1 good one, but they're 2nd in EPA per play allowed, 1st in success rate. I just think if this Jacksonville injury report does come in as bad as it seems like it might, that there could be a little bit more room to even go down even further on this total.
And if you like the over, it also helps that the Eagles have not scored in the first quarter this year, which is one of the weirdest things imaginable. Happened again this past week, 0 points in the first quarter. I'll give some really quick thoughts on Monday Night Football between the Chiefs and the Bucs. I think that there's an angle here where you can attack Tampa Bay's team total under. Last week, decent offensive output against Atlanta. This is not going to be Atlanta. This is going to be a Chiefs team that generates pressure, throws a ton of different looks at you with that Steve Spagnuolo defense. And ultimately, I just don't see the path to success for Tampa Bay moving the ball through the air in this game with Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard as their wide receiver options. One other thing, too, when you play a team total under, like I'd like to do with the Bucs here at 17.5, Kansas City plays very slow, methodical football. I have the number one adjusted success rate in the league relative to the quality of competition. They move down the field slowly. They don't generate explosives. The one thing Kansas City has this year is a running game who can run the ball on everyone. They rely on that a ton. They don't throw downfield, and that hurts the opposing team total as well. So I think that's the best look for Monday Night Football is Tampa Bay, whose offense I normally really like, but not with this lack of weapons against this Kansas City defense. All right, guys, let's get into it. That's 11 games covered. We will go best bets, rapid fire style here, and we are going to start again. This is a very repetitive theme.
4-game win streak, Rob.
Four-game win streak. You know, you'll never match producer Jason, who has a 100% record on this show. You know, we're going to have to start getting Jason picks, by the way. I'm not going to hear this every week going forward, that he's undefeated all time. Jason, next week, you're giving a pick. I don't care what it is. You're giving a pick. Hitman, though, 4 in a row. Make it 5. Who's it going to be and why?
Chargers Browns over, best price in market at Fanduel at 42.5 minus 105. The Browns offensive line is fully healthy. His protection, there's conflicting stats on how much actual time that Winston did have to throw last week, but at the end of the day, the point is that the protection was great. It's a Chargers defense that has played good year to date, but they've played a lot of bad offenses this season. The Browns wanted to be throw heavy coming into the year. They have the quarterback to execute that offense. Cleveland had a season high 51% success rate on passing plays last week after a league worst 33% success rate the previous 7 weeks. And as we spoke about earlier, the shift in the Chargers offense post-bye and Justin Herbert getting healthy. He's been super efficient since the bye. 2 easy matchups, but it's also been against teams that not exactly have been pass funnels, and the Chargers have had a way higher pass rate over expectation. They had nearly 400 yards of total offense in those games, and we have defensive injuries on both sides of the ball. Chargers dealing with secondary injuries to Christian Fulton. Asante Samuel is still out. Browns are missing, likely missing JOK. They're definitely going to be missing their top corner in Denzel Ward. I like the over 42.5 in the Browns-Chargers game.
Something really interesting happening in the chat. We have people rooting for Hitman this season. He was the heel. You know, Hitman will get the wrestling references, but he's now the babyface, basically. He's made the career turn here into the guy that people are rooting for. Never thought I would see this happen in my lifetime, but here we are. Hitman,
I'll do something to screw it up and piss people off, probably. But
at some point or another. Well, now that you're doing props on Saturday too, and those are winning, I think the people are really enjoying the Hitman content this year. Again, either they want someone to completely fade, which I think they always liked you, in all honesty. I think but now they're actually showing it. Judah, you won last week as well with the over in Browns and Ravens. You're up next. What's it going to be and why?
Yeah, back to the alt here, going Washington minus 13.5. Certainly a big number, but we talked about the Washington defense, which I think is going to give the Giants a ton of trouble. I mean, they could not run a standard drop back in the second half of last week. They're terrified of the Steelers pass rush, and they just have massive problems on the offensive line. Their left tackle position is probably the worst in the NFL. And Rob, you mentioned the team total of 24.5. I think that is insanely low for a team that I think has the best offense in the NFL right now. And the Giants are an extreme team where if the Giants defense is generating pressure, they've been good, but on plays where they don't generate pressure, they've been one of the worst defenses, if not the worst defense in the NFL. There's been no better quarterback at creating when pressure arrives early than Jaden Daniels. They can obviously get their ground game going against the Giants run defense, which has been the worst in the NFL over the last month. real points exist in real games. And I think that the Washington can put up a 30 points very easily. And this defense can certainly shut down a Giants offense, which has done virtually nothing this year. And certainly so after Andrew Thomas has gone down. I love this spot in a extreme alt, I guess, at 13.5.
All right. That's 2 down. Suma, over to you.
Yeah, talked about it already. Rams -1.5 at Seattle. I like the Rams offense a lot. Better team, better offense. I like the Rams here, -1.5. Yeah, praying to go 2-7 on the season.
Well, hopefully you get it, because I got an early position in that game as well. So I'll be rooting for you there on the LA Rams. I'll take it home here. I know it's been bet up a bunch. This is my biggest edge at current market prices, and I feel compelled to just always give out the biggest edge I have in real time. I am taking the Broncos and Ravens over 45.5 -108. I have a 3.2% edge on this at the current market number. Part of it is just thinking Baltimore is going to move the ball on everyone. Denver's D has played a bunch of limp dick offenses in a row. They've played Carolina, Saints without Carr, Chargers, Las Vegas, the Jet. I mean, Tampa Bay is the best offense they've played this year. They played Pittsburgh in week 2. I really think that people are overvaluing the defensive unit for the Broncos right now. Baltimore, tons of explosive plays on offense. Denver also has a lot of explosive plays on offense with 51. They're going up against a Baltimore defense now without their nose tackle, a secondary that's not very good. Even if Marlon Humphrey plays, they've given up 29 explosive passes this year as well. I see a route to success for both of these teams in this game. And Lamar Jackson just announced it was a rest day as well. So no concern there. I'm going with the over in that game. That's going to be it for us this week. 4 more best bets, but obviously a lot of games that we covered as well. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe here to Forward Progress on YouTube. You can also catch us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts every week as well. Drop your thoughts and picks in the comments below. And just like last week, I'll respond to everyone later on this week. For myself, Rob Pizzola, for Judah Fortgang, for Suma, for Billy Walters 2.0, Hitman, and producer Jason Cooper behind the scenes. Best of luck this week, everyone. As always, bet responsibly. We'll see you next time here on Forward Progress.